Namaskar and good morning. Um, yes, thank you for inviting me to have a talk at the Mayo Clinic, which is known all over the world, prestigious place. Yes, the subject given to me today is yoga and health. So, but let me explain what yoga means first. Now, the word yoga is not merely the yoga asanas and the pranayam that people do, which is of course part of yoga, because yoga, according to Patanjali, who is the written this wonderful text called the Yoga Sutras, which is the standard textbook for all yogics and yoga practitioners. According to Patanjali, the yoga, what we call yoga, is divided into 8 angas, which means 8 parts, 8 divisions, starting with rules and regulations of life like yama, niyama, and then comes asana, which are postures, and then pranayam, which is breathing exercises, but they are not merely physical breathing, we will go into that, and pratyahara, which means the capacity to give attention and withdraw attention at short notice from any object, thought or center. And then of course dharana, dhyana and samadhi, which are the higher levels of yoga, where you learn how to fix your attention one pointedly on something, stay there for a length of time, which culminates in the state called samadhi, which is super conscious state. Now, the super conscious is not a word which is much accepted in the scientific field today as of now, but I think we are beginning to make dents, and slowly scientists are discussing this. So, this is it. Now, yoga and health. Yoga, while it is primarily meant for spiritual progress, it's also an understanding among all yogis that your body and mind have to be healthy to move towards the spiritual field. Therefore, there are 2 aspects of yoga. One is to do with the physical body, and the other is to do with the mind. Now, according to the WHO's manifesto, health is not merely physical health. Health is to do also with the mind. You can have a perfectly healthy body and have a terrible mind, which means you are not healthy really. So, yoga takes note of this, and it has taken note of this maybe 1,000 years ago, and works out plans and methods and ideas by which you can make your body healthy and also your mind healthy. Now, body healthy people understand. In Hollywood, there are lots of people practicing yoga for, well, some do it for an hourglass figure and some do it for general health, and they found it to be very effective exercise and so on. But yoga is not merely to do with muscles. I need to say this because many people think it's to do with keeping your muscles. Yeah, yes, in a way, yes. Keeping your body. No, more than that. The practice of yogasanas and pranayam, both, which is the breathing part of yoga, also has a great effect on your endocrine system. This is something we have to understand very clearly, because the yogis also, in a way, accept the fact that happiness could also be, and health, mind health, could also be a chemical reaction. How? When I say I am in a nice mood, in a happy mood, a blissful mood, if a biochemist checks the blood content, he would find that there is more of serotonin circulating in the blood. Now, the serotonin is released by the pituitary gland, and serotonin is our wellness factor, except that in yoga, the yogis have discovered ways and means by which at a given time voluntarily they can release the serotonin using the mind and using certain postures, of course. So that what happens then? Then at any given time you can change your mind into a calm, quiet state, which according to yoga is the root of all good health. This is very important to note. So it deals with the endocrine system, starting from the pituitary to the pineal to the thyroid and other glands in the body, which are kept in good condition. I'll give you a simple example. Anger is a problem which we all face some point or the other. It just comes up and before you know it, it has done its damage. Well, many people would love to get rid of this anger, but they find it very difficult. However, many people understand the fact that it is good to be not angry because things don't happen properly when you're angry. Your judgment suffers. Your anxiety and anger can make you come to wrong decisions and wrong conclusions. So, if this is understood, and if you really want to get rid of anger, then the first thing is the theoretical understanding that it's taking you nowhere. This has to be there. And there should be a willing desire to set oneself free from anger. These two are primary. If these two are already there in your thoughts, then there are certain yogic exercises which will look like they are very physical, but actually have an impact on your emotions, like anger. Now, medically, when you're angry, what happens is a good lot of adrenaline is pumped into your system when you're angry. Well, it also happens when you're afraid and there's a reaction to fear in many cases, but anger also it happens. And where are the adrenal glands? They are here, somewhere in your abdominal area. And the adrenal glands which produce adrenaline, and when you're angry, a large amount is pumped into the system. Now the question is, does anger happen when this adrenaline is pumped into the system, or is it that emotionally when you're angry it starts pumping more? Let's not, it's like which is first, the hen or the egg. So let's not discuss that. But it is a fact that this happens, right? So now there is one particular asana, but please, first understanding is that I don't want it, I want to be free from it. Then I start working on it. And one of the asanas that we teach people to practice regularly to get rid of anger is Matsyasana. Now, I can't demonstrate the asana right here. If you go to any of the yogic charts which are very popular today, you will see what is Matsyasana. It's like basically sitting in the Buddha posture, which is Padmasana, and allowing your body to go backwards and resting your head on the ground. Well, it appears difficult, but believe me, through practice it can be done. If you have a bad back, avoid, but otherwise. And then holding your knees and resting for a time. So one usually asks, what happens here? How does this asana help? You see, the muscles of your abdominal area just under which is the adrenal glands are massaged. They get nicely massaged. And a continuous practice of this, I have proof that you are able to bring some control over your anger. And you all know that apart from causing behavioral concerns, anger also contributes to increased heartbeat and therefore to cardiac problems and physical health in general. If you see a person who is very calm, who doesn't get easily provoked, generally the physical health including cardiac health is in good condition. This can be checked, I suppose, experimented upon. Now, this is one part. I was just going to tell you, I was telling you how what appears to be a physical yogic exercise seems to have an effect on your mood and therefore on the chemical constitution of your body, and also how it calms your mind and makes you more healthy because a calm mind, according to yoga, is very necessary for a healthy body. Now, this is one side of the story. The other is that while you practice pranayam, which is the breathing exercises, which have been all clubbed together as pranayam. There are very many variations of pranayam, of breathing exercises. One of the primary understandings in this particular subject is that your mind state and your rhythm of your breathing are closely related to each other. Which means if you are very agitated, you certainly have a very erratic breathing pattern. And if you are calm and quiet and doing something you really love to do, listening to music, or even going for a walk with no particular intention, just for a walk, you find that if you just look within, examine your breathing, you see that it's very calm and quiet and very rhythmatic. So the rishis said, if the mind works on the breath, can we not try to change the breathing patterns and influence the mind the other way around? From this came the entire science of pranayam. Apart from the spiritual aspects, which I won't go into right now, about how the body has so many channels through which the energy called prana moves and which can be controlled and used for a particular purpose. Pranayam is also for that. But now we're talking about health. So this is the use of the pranayam, that when you start doing rhythmic breathing exercises, your endocrine system also falls in order, starting from the pituitary to the pineal and so on. It's in perfect order. And when it's in perfect order, naturally your physical health is good, provided you follow the dietary regulations, the yama niyamas, which are very simple in yoga. Krishna describes it in the Gita very nicely by saying, Arjuna, this yoga is not for him who eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or sleeps too little. If I may add as a corollary, drinks too much. So, if these regulations can be followed, and simple nutritious food can be taken inside, part of our body health, and if we practice the exercises of pranayam and meditation, which induces the supply of serotonin into your bloodstream, then I think in general we can keep our health in good order. Now, well, there are diseases that come like a viral attack. We just have passed through a pandemic where we were attacked by a viral COVID-19 virus. Now, people generally ask me the question, by practicing yoga, can you be free from, or can you defend yourself from COVID-19, for instance? Now, my answer is, well, if you lead a proper life, proper food and so on, and have fresh air to breathe, and also learn how to breathe, people have forgotten how to breathe, then it's possible for you to avoid this pandemic, individually, this infection, or even if it takes place, you can make sure that it doesn't affect your lungs much. The Delta variant was going straight to the lungs, and many people died of pneumonia. This is because the bronchioles, which are in the lungs, as you know, could not fight back the infection. If only one knew how to irrigate the bronchioles with proper oxygen, which is involved in the pranayam, which is part of yoga, then even if you are infected, you could kind of keep it to a minimum, the effect of the infection. I passed through this pandemic. Maybe I also got a little bit, but I had no symptoms, and it vanished in no time. And throughout the pandemic, since I couldn't go out, I've been online talking to different groups, teaching them how to breathe so that your lungs are really filled with oxygen and resist the coming in of these infections. Of course, masks have to be worn and other parameters have to be followed because the virus is all over the place. Understood. Having done that, if you can do that, I am sure many people have benefited by this. I also had 2 talks with the WHO, also with the director, Dr. is a German name, I am sorry I forgot, of how one can, in the midst of danger, protect oneself through the practice of yoga and pranayam, and most of all, keep the mind from panicking. You see, what happens when you panic, what happens when you are in fear is that your body's immunity apparatus goes for a sixer. I mean, it's gone, it's done off with. So, if you can learn how to stay centered, how to stay calm, which the Gita Krishna calls sarvatra samabuddhaya, the mind being calm under all circumstances, which can be practiced and brought about through constant effort, then this yoga is going to help you to be healthy. And before I stop, last part, there are many postures in physical yoga, in the asanas, in which you have to put your head down and feet up. Now, if you have a high BP and so on, I tell people avoid this because it could cause a brain hemorrhage. But if you're normal and if you're doing the Shirsasana and so on, what happens is the circulation of blood in your brain increases, and therefore it has a great effect on your pituitary and pineal glands, which are the master glands which control your system. So, which is why asanas are good, and there are several asanas. I can't go into it in detail, and there is also what is called yogic therapy, which if you go to an expert, you can generally get rid of many ailments. Generally, there are exceptions. If you have to go to the ICU, you cannot stop it with an asana if you are in that stage. What I am trying to say is otherwise. So, therefore, yoga as a therapy and yoga as a goodness factor for the body and mind is more a preventive than a cure. So, a regular practice of yoga generally keeps you free of these problems. This is my experience. I am 72 years old now. I have been practicing yoga since the age of 10, and believe me, I am going on. There are many young people who wish they had this much energy as I have. So, I am a proof. So, this is why I offered myself as a guinea pig to experiment when I went last time to Geneva for a talk on yoga. The subject was yoga beyond asanas. So, having said this, I need to now stop because there might be a question answer session. You might have some questions to discuss. So, then, well, I rest my case. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Shriyam. Again, very insightful and helpful for all of us to reiterate and remind ourselves how important it is to maintain this very important tool that we have been blessed with, so that we can execute the functions that we have come for on this earth. Let's start the Q&A with pranam from all of the attendees. Could you share the lifestyle, eating habits, daily practices, etc., of the Himalayan Yogis from your experiences? And can someone like us aspire to adopt those in our daily lives?
Of course, you cannot lead the lifestyle of the Himalayan Yogis when you are in a city or in another place This is possible only in the Himalayas. However, like they eat very little, they know exactly what is nutritious and what is not. They lead a free life without every morning looking at their cell phones and checking what are the comments and what's going on and so on. So it's a different life altogether. Having said that, it's possible to some extent to imitate the lifestyle of the yogis. Not entirely, because in the Himalayas, it's not polluted. We have free air. We can't live like that in a city, for instance. And we have an agenda which is very tight usually. We need to go here, we need to do this work. They are free, they are enjoying their freedom. So therefore their lifestyle cannot be fully copied. But since I have watched the yogis from close quarters, I know that certain things we can follow. I might be doing a little more than normal, but normally we can follow a few. One is eat nutritious food, but eat light food. And the Himalayan Yogis are vegetarian. Now, if I ask all people, please go vegetarian before you start practicing yoga, people would rather say, many people, oh, I don't want yoga now, we'll do it later when I retire. So what I do is I try to moderate it and say, well, control your food habits and try not to eat food that requires killing an animal or something like that. But as you move along, you will come to a stage when you think you need to drop it. Drop it at that point, but let it not discourage you from learning yoga. One. Second point is avoid the tendency to wear tight fitting clothes, because the skin has to breathe. Some of the yogis in the Himalayas, you won't believe it. I have seen my master Maheshwarnath Babaji walk barefoot, bare-bodied on the Gangotri glacier. I am not saying we should attempt that, you would fall sick very easily. So here is a lifestyle. Get up as early as possible. For us, get up as early as possible, preferably before the sun has fully risen. Sit down and do a little bit of yoga. Meditate for a while, chant the mantra which you have learned or which has been taught to you. Drink enough water and eat at the right time. Don't eat one time one day and another time another day. Fix your eating timings. Eat light food. Don't sit for one meal. I eat only once a day, but I fill my abdomen with as much food as possible. This doesn't work. So moderate your intake. Try to avoid alcohol. Try. Nowadays all deals are made over a glass of wine. It's difficult to say this, but avoid as much as possible and let it not go beyond a glass if you're doing it. I'm saying this to bring it down to the ordinary people like you and me. And practice your asanas and pranayam every day. Now there's one more thing. Try to do at least one good deed every day before you go to sleep. If you ask me, does that any effect on your health? I say yes, it has. It makes the mind more altruistic and it proves that you are actually living the life which philosophically has always been believed, that you and I are not separate beings but part of the whole. Now this is what I would call a holistic living, where you consider the other person also as part of you and try even a little bit to do something for the other guy. So these are some of the things I can share with you. Please don't try to imitate the lifestyle of the yogis who live in the Himalayas. It's not going to work fully. So bring it down, stagger it down to a system which you possibly can practice.
Thank you. That's great advice. So the question is, what is the final stage in evolution of the human consciousness?
Human consciousness in general is still in the process of evolving. So right now, although we think that we are probably the best evolved and so on, I'm going to say something a little controversial. I personally believe, well, not believe, know, that there are other highly developed intelligences outside this world. Well, you can call them devas, you can call them whatever names you want, but there are. We are not the super evolved beings as we think we are still evolving. And therefore, the next step in evolution would be to understand the fact which I stated some time back, that we are part of one whole consciousness. That the consciousness operates through different centers, but it's actually one. Yeah. Now, how do we go about it? One, through deep meditation on your own inner self. When all its conditionings are removed, you suddenly discover that it is Purna, which is what the great Upanishadic sloka means, Purnamada, Purnamidam. This is also Purna. That the origin is Purna, we are also Purna, although we seem to be Apurna. Because we think of ourselves as the body personality. There's something more than that in us. When this is understood, then you also discover that this spark of the spirit in you is also in everybody else. Therefore, when you are helping somebody, you are only helping yourself, you are not helping anybody else. It's the same thing. Right? I don't like to be pained. When I evolve, I don't like somebody else also pained. That's the criteria to check if I'm really evolved. So, start by practice, like the Jains. The principle, the ultimate principle of Jain religion, very difficult to follow. They don't even believe in a creator God, but they believe that the soul has to be purified and it attains nirvana. Now, one of the key principles is ahimsa paramo dharma. Ahimsa is the supreme dharma, not as a moral law. What they mean is practice ahimsa, not wait and see, oh, how can it be? But practice it, but by practicing it, you are freeing yourself. When I say ahimsa, I mean not causing injury to other living beings. Please include human beings also into that. And also, sometimes mind injuries are worse than physical injuries. You may slap somebody, but it will disappear in 2 days or 2 hours. But if you, through words, hurt somebody, it may remain in the mind for ages and fester into a wound. So, when you say lead a life of ahimsa, basically what I mean is try not to injure others' mind or body as much as you can. And if you keep this principle in view and carry on with life, I am assuring you that you will find ways and means of functioning in this world fully conscious of this. It is difficult, but it is possible. And the reason why you should be doing it is because it's that which leads to expansion of your consciousness from a small little center to several centers.
Thank you. The next question that has been bumped up, and this is also, I guess, from the curiosity of the audience when you mentioned that there might be beings in this universe who may be more evolved than us. So you mentioned that in your books you have met masters in the astral plane. Have you connected with any lately? Is there any message for us?
It's very interesting. Before connecting with somebody on another plane or another planet, whether you believe or not that there's something there, the interesting thing to note, there are not several, but few people, beings in this world who look like human beings, but who are actually evolved souls from somewhere. They're probably planted here to help others or to teach people. I'm not talking about the comic version of walk-ins, not as if somebody is possessed by somebody, that's not what I mean. But there are evolved souls today, I'm just saying it for the first time perhaps, and that too in a scientific institution like a Mayo Clinic. I don't know how this will be taken, but yeah, I believe that there are some advanced souls who have already spent their time in the higher levels of existence and have come down to the physical body to teach. And I think in the ancient times, when they talk about avatars, rishis and yogis as separate categories, when they talk about avatar, they are talking about such beings. The ordinary effects of karma don't rub on them, because they have come from another plane. They come for the purpose of teaching, but come here and therefore in a human body, they behave like us. They are vulnerable to emotion, all these things happen, but deep down they know that they are not part of this. They have come to take others also to that level gradually, little by little, right. So, this is my belief, and it is not my belief, well, it's my finding. Yes, and for instance, my master Maheshwaranath, I don't think he was an ordinary man. Sri Guru Babaji, from whose souls we get the Kriya, I don't think he was even a person born from a human womb. Now, this is quite controversial, I know, but it's a fact. And even those who are born in a physical womb, there could be cases where they are animated by very evolved souls, which is why you suddenly find child prodigies and so on. They have not worked for it, but they seem to have some faculties from childhood. How do we explain this? Well, you can explain it through accident theory, but life is not all a bunch of accidents, right? So, and also I also believe, I also know that you can at a certain stage leave your physical body and perhaps travel to other levels of existence. Please, you don't have to believe this. In fact, my master used to say it's good that people don't believe it. That is the valve which prevents the curious from going to the other side. The serious will somehow find a way.
I love that terms. The serious will somehow find a way.
True.
It's very true. The other question that we have here is, for someone who is not practiced Hatha Yoga, how does one get initiated into it?
Now, I might take a little time on this, because there is this usual misunderstanding that Hatha Yoga is for the body and there is another yoga called Raja Yoga which is for the mind, and so on and so forth. Not true. Apart from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the textbooks available to us on yoga are mostly from the Nath Sampradaya, like the Goraksha Shataka, Garanda Samhita, Shiva Samhita, and of course the famous Hatha Yoga Pradipika of Svatma Rama, who was also a Nath. Now, Hatha Yoga does not mean only physical yoga. There is some kind of misunderstanding out there. It means clearing and perfecting the mind through perfecting the body. That's what it actually means. So, so therefore, the word Hatha comes from the two syllables Ha and Tha. Ha represents the channel or the nadi, which in the yogis call the Pingala nadi, which is positive, which means, when I say positive, it means heat energy. And Tha is the moon. This is the sun and this is the moon. So, cool and hot energies. And therefore, Hatha Yoga means how to balance the cool and hot energies. This is what it actually means. But it also teaches you the different asanas. Patanjali doesn't teach you any asanas. He simply says, well, Sthira Sukham Asanam, that posture in which you feel most comfortable for a length of time is your asana. There is no other mention of asana, except that asana is part of the Ashtanga, the 8 parts. Now, it's in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika that it is elaborated, and so many asanas, some 21 or 22 asanas are taught. So, therefore, to be initiated into Hatha Yoga means, that was the question, means to start first the simple rules and regulations of yoga, which is moderation in everything, in entertainment, in sleep, in food, and so on. Start with. And then practice your asanas regularly. Now, for initiating into asanas, it's not such a big thing, because nowadays there are many schools which teach you how to do yogasanas. Be careful, go to a standard established traditional school. The parampara is important, because otherwise every Tom, Dick and Harry would be teaching you asanas, which is dangerous, especially because they deal with the endocrine system, right? So, pick like I am sure, well, you can learn yogasanas with us, but you don't have to compulsorily. The Shivananda Divine Life Society in Rishikesh teaches yogasanas very well. And there are some other traditional schools like the Bihar School of Yoga, for instance. And yeah, so there are many such schools that teach yoga. So, start with simple asanas. Follow the rules and regulations to the best capacity that you can. Start your asanas. There is no need of a formal initiation into this. And then if when you go for higher training, then you might need something like that. I am sure that if your mind is fully on that, somewhere or the other somebody will guide you. The guidance will appear. There is no need to run around. But you can start with this and see how your body becomes healthy, and then your mind becomes healthy. When you come to a stage, you have to go beyond the mind. That's where you need an initiation. Again, let me tell you, the Sanskrit word for initiation is dhiksha. Dhiksha means showing you the dik, the direction in which you go. That's what it actually means. It need not mean in whispering some mysterious things into your ears in a dark room. It means somebody showing you how to proceed. So, I am sure you will find this easily, but to start with, do some exercises like asanas, simple asanas, pranayam, meditate simply for 2 minutes, which doesn't require any initiation. Just watch your breath. Watching your breath and chanting Om can be taught to anyone. It need not be a special initiation.
Thank you. While I'm taking audience questions, I have one of my that I'll pose here. I know that there is enough stress laid on the role of the guru, and you mentioned dhiksha. It becomes difficult to identify and secure one. I may have, over my lifetime, my parents have initiated me and got me Guru Dakshina and have gurus. But how do you identify a guru? How do you secure one? Or would you go with the adage that you mentioned that the serious will find one, or maybe the guru will appear sometime in your life? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's not. It's a good idea to keep searching, of course. But meanwhile, while you search, let not your practice, whatever you're doing by yourself, be put on hold. Continue with that. and keep looking for one. It's how do you recognize the Guru? Only a spiritual person can recognize a spiritual person fully. So you can only look for certain qualities, like is the person's mind calm and quiet and tranquil in the midst of all circumstances? Yes or no? Or is he only interested in profit and not interested in you? 2. And is the person also practicing his meditation and his whatever he is supposed to be doing? And these are some of the things. But the most important is, before accepting somebody as a teacher in this field, please live or be close proximity to the person for a while before you decide whether you should accept this person or not. Because it's very easy in a talk or in a public performance to say, oh, I am quiet, free and calm and so on, but in your house, what happens? The best thing would be to ask the wife, if the person has a wife. Well, I always tell people the best way to break your ego is to get married. So, watch for those symptoms. Is the ego too big? Does the person not entertain any criticism at all? And is he calm under all circumstances? Is he kind? Is he loving? He might be a disciplinarian, but is he loving? This is the criteria, not whether he can produce ashes or he can produce rings, or PC Sarkar can do that, it's no big deal, or whether he can walk on water. I know a guy who tried and fell deep inside. Anyway, so this is not the criteria. The criteria is, can the person, after you know the person for a while, bring about a change in your mind? Is your mind moving towards better things? Are you calm and quiet? And is he himself tranquil under all circumstances? And is he looking more for your welfare or only his own welfare? I mean, these are the key ways, because it's very hard to actually read a real yogi. Only a yogi can read a real yogi. But we can only use this criteria. However, please understand that a teacher, a real spiritual teacher, may not have the paraphernalia which you imagine he should have, nor would he sometimes fall into your bracket of definitions. Oh, something to bear in mind. I don't have time, otherwise I would have told you a nice Sufi story about the Guru. I think we are running out of time. We have another 7 minutes. Maybe next time. It's a beautiful story. It represents exactly what a teacher. Shall I say it?
Please go ahead.
It might benefit everybody.
Everybody.
Okay. Now, there was a man, a very rich man in the Middle East. Now, this is a Sufi story though, so the setting is the Middle East. And when he was a small boy, he had great interest in spiritual fulfillment, spiritual search. But at the same time, he was born in a very poor family. I'm going to be fast. Poor family. And so he also wanted to be rich. So somewhere in the course of his life, wanting to be rich took precedence, and he lost the aspiration for spiritual will. So anyway, so he became rich, and when he was around 55, he decided, now I've understood that money cannot buy everything. It can't definitely buy happiness. So now let me go back to the old flame which I still have in my heart and rekindle it. So he gave away all his possessions and decided to go and live in a oasis. You know, in the Middle East, it's only in the oasis where you have some water. If you dig, you get oil. Can't drink it. So he went and lived in the oasis, built a little cottage for himself. And since he has been a rich man for many years, he had forgotten even how to make a cup of tea. So he took a man from the village who claimed that he can cook well, and both of them went and stayed in the oasis in a little cottage, and he spent 7 years. He took all his books, reading, meditating, And it occurred to him after 7 years, this particular venture that I am undertaking needs a guide, a teacher. So after 7 years, so he went around looking for a teacher. He found many, he was not happy. Then he found a guy with a long beard and rosaries and a green turban and vulnerable looking guy, and he went to him and said, "Sir, you look to be a great man, can you make me your disciple?" And the teacher said, "Well, first of all, how do you know that I would accept you as man?" The second problem is that I cannot do anything without asking permission from my own teacher. So he said, "Please, sir, go ask him and come back because I need help." He said, "This is the problem. It's 7 years since my teacher has disappeared. And I can't find him. I'm actually searching for him." So this guy said, "Well, maybe I can help you. So can you give me a description of your teacher?" He said, "Well, he's a short man, doesn't wear upper garments, has a towel on his shoulders, but he's a very good cook." He said, "Just a minute, wait." He said, "Sounds like the description of my cook who's been with me 7 years. Please come with me." So he took him there. The kitchen door opened and the cook came out, and this man prostrated before him and said, "Oh master, where have you been for 7 years?" He said, "I was with this guy." He said, "But he's still looking for a teacher." He said, "It took me 7 years to convince him that he needed a teacher. Now you can accept him as your disciple." What I'm trying to say, there is no paraphernalia really by which you can recognize a teacher. Could be anybody. Who was Arjuna's teacher? His charioteer?
Yeah.
There you are.
Thank you.
Corollary, respect your driver. He might be a realized man.
No, right? Respect everyone you work with. Yeah. Okay. So this seems to be some major common theme. So I'll take this one. Is how do you stay on the practice of asanas and pranayams? Because people feel they start, but then they revert back and they are not able to maintain a continuous habit and practice of it.
Right. You're right. So how do we stay? We stay on track only when we know that the asanas and pranayam and other things that we practice are very important to us as anything else. This is the first thing to understand. If it's just a hobby which you're not so happy about, or not so careful, you're just doing it, then it's liable that it stops after a while. Suppose I'm truly interested in it and I think it's a priority. So for this, you need to first set your priorities. Say that when I'm doing my asanas, pranayam and meditation or whatever, I will not do anything else. I will not take my dog out for a walk. I find some other time for that. I won't go for golf. I won't play badminton and tennis. I will do this first and then set apart another time for that because it is so important for me. It's my life. When any action, not only asanas, when it becomes your top priority, then automatically you will not stop doing it. You will continue doing it. And for those who have stopped after some time, my suggestion is restart it. No harm. Many people have stopped, but some have stopped and that was the end of it. And some have stopped and restarted it. So restart it till you become truly, truly interested and enjoy what you're doing. That's my advice on this matter.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. As long as you feel this is important,
Yes,
you will find time for it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Agree. One more question. And this is more for those who have been asking in response to the dhiksha and guru questions. Can our kids, get dhiksha from you?
Who?
All of us, the audience question.
Well, there are simple things like you can sit down and watch your breath and meditate with hum, saw and things like that, which is very simple. If you consider that as an initiation, well, it's done. All I'm saying is sit down quietly, do your asanas first, take a deep inhalation, and as you inhale, chant hum. This is part of a mantra actually. And then when you exhale, chant saw. So it is hum, saw, hum, saw. This is the Hamsa mantra taken from the Mandala Brahmana Upanishad, which is a Yoga Upanishad, in which you keep practicing this as you inhale and exhale. And after 10 minutes, stop everything and sit quietly as a witness. This is a good way to start. If you consider this as an initiation, you had it. You got it.
Thank you. And with that, I just bow down my head and on behalf of all the audience, thank you very much for gracing us.
Thank you very much, and may Babaji bless you. Thank you to all of you. Namaskar.